Hey y'all, it's Kay from the Literary Apothecary, and today we're going to do our 200 subscriber Q&A celebration. I have all the questions that you all submitted here. At the end of the video, we'll do a fun giveaway with our prize wheel. So thank you all, first of all, for subscribing and watching all of my videos and just giving me your support and your love. It means the world to me. It's going to sound cliche, but I really couldn't have done this without you guys. Without further ado, let's just get into these questions because there's a bunch and there are some really great questions here. So first from Pete, from Ponderings of Pete, and I'm going to put everyone's handles, channels, whatever you want to call it, here on the screen so you can see it. If you're not subscribed to any of these of my friends, go subscribe now because they're all so fantastic. So Pete from Ponderings and Pete asks, what is your favorite plant? I am an infamous plant killer. I can't keep any kind of plant alive. I once had a coworker that brought in I think it was like a succulent kind of plant, and she said, you cannot kill this. This is unkillable. And it lasted probably about a week because I gave it too much love. So my favorite kind of plant, I like to look at pretty flowers, like the little, purple flowers that we have out in the grass. I love daisies and tulips and, pretty flowers to look at, but also a lot of the pretty plants, the flowers and stuff, have pollen, and I'm allergic to pollen, and it makes me sneeze a ton and my head fill up and I sound all nasally and shit. So my favorite kind of plant maybe is a fake one, I guess, because I kill them and they don't create pollen if they're fake. So that's my answer for that. Pete also asks, why Scotland? So my family originated from Scotland way, way back before they moved to England and before they moved to the US. So back, the legend says that back in the time of Mary, Queen of Scots, we were Queensmen, which means we supported Mary and we fought for her. And there was two brothers, the two Blakelock brothers. And when Mary fled to England, we also fled with her, and then we put down roots in England, and then eventually from England we went to the US and New York City. And so my family is originally from Scotland, and it just is that place that pulls at my heart, and it just feels like that's where I belong. Every time I think about Scotland, I feel at home, and I feel like that's where I need to be. That's where I belong. So that's why Scotland. Where in Scotland, we haven't decided yet. I've only just started planning kind of the whole move and trip and everything. I haven't even been to Scotland yet. So our first step will be visiting Scotland in various places in there and trying to see which one feels right for us. And then from there, we'll decide when Scotland. At least 2 years, because I'm financially obligated to my current employer for 2 years because of school. And then it'll depend on when we can afford it, because it will be an expensive move from the US to Scotland. And of course, first we'll need to go and visit and all that kind of stuff and figure out all of the logistics. So when is at least 2 years, and we haven't made any kind of date yet or not. Pete also asked, can you take us with you? I will expect everyone watching this to come visit our bookstore, which will also hopefully be called the Literary Apothecary once we move to Scotland. So take you with us, not necessarily, but I will expect you all to come visit me in Scotland, and we'll have lots of bookish fun there. And last question from Pete, what email greeting sign-off do you think should be acceptable in professional circles, especially the more serious ones? They could use a good chuckle. Usually I say something like, have a great day, or have a great weekend if it's a Friday, thank you, things like that. Best just feels, I don't know, it feels stilted to me, but that's what everyone uses, so I've been trying to be uniform in my office and use that so we all seem like a team. But I like things like have a great day because it makes you have a smile on your face. Or, depending on who I'm talking to and what we're talking about, sometimes I just say something like, you're the best, or you rock, just to make people smile. Okay, next up we have Chloe from Chloe Allison. Chloe asks, what book or books got you into reading? And I would say like the boxcar children books were huge for me. They got me into like series readings. A lot of people say like Harry Potter, but I didn't come to Harry Potter until later in life. I was in my 20s, I think it was, when I first started reading Harry Potter. So definitely the Boxcar Children, Nancy Drew. I was just always a voracious reader. I loved reading all the time. So all of those younger books, I loved reading. I loved reading ahead of my age group also, because that made me feel older, smarter, and they were just better books. She also asked, why did you decide to start your channel? So I talked about this in my booktube newbie tech, which seems like forever ago now. But I started this channel because, well, my boyfriend Howard kind of pushed me into it because I was always talking about books to him, and he's like, you should just join YouTube. Just create a YouTube channel. And so I found BookTube and realized this was a place where everyone comes to talk about books, and it was like home to me. And so I just needed a place to talk about books all the time, and I love it. So that's why I created the channel. Kim from K-Fox the Great asks, if you had to pick a speculative fiction world to live in as you are now, i.e. with no magic, being human, etc., which would you choose? And this is a hard question for me, because everything that I thought of was either dark and I wouldn't want to live there, Handmaid's Tale, 1984, Hunger Games, you know, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to live in a world like that. I want to live in a world that's happy. And then I thought of a whole bunch of other worlds, but they all had magic in it. And then when I was talking about this with a couple of friends of mine, this is the only question that I thought of ahead of time. Abby said, well, what if it means just that you didn't have magic, but the rest of the world could have magic? And that just opened a whole world to me, because then I thought of like Erin Morgenstern's books, The Starless Sea, and the books in the library. So I guess The Starless Sea, if other people could have magic and just not me. Erica from Geeklit Reads Stuff asks, if you could have dinner with any author, living or dead, who would it be? And I think, like, I've always had this fascination with F. Scott Fitzgerald, so I would love to sit down with him and talk to him. What would you have for dinner? Lots of alcohol, because if you know anything about F. Scott Fitzgerald, you know he likes to drink. And I guess we'd probably have like bread and cheese and stuff like that. And what would you talk about? Everything and anything he wants to talk about. His friendship with Hemingway, his being part of the Lost Generation, his works, his love and relationship and marriage with Zelda. I'd also love to include Zelda in this dinner and just have like a 3-person dinner instead of a 1-person dinner, because I love Zelda Fitzgerald so much. She is fantastic. If y'all haven't read the book on Zelda, it's called Z, a novel for Zelda Fitzgerald. I'll put the picture up here. You should read that if you love that kind of world. It's a fantastic book on Zelda. I love that character. Thank you, Erica. So Holly asks, what's your favorite bookmark? I don't really have a favorite per se. She also asked, do you use a traditional bookmark or prefer a photo or something else? So lately I've been reading either books that have been gifted to me or library books. So for those I use either the library slip or the gift cards that come with the books that are gifted to me as bookmarks. I also have this one that I don't even know where it is right now, but it was from my grandma, and so it's an old one. It's sentimental to me. I guess technically I'd say that's my favorite, but really anything that keeps my place in a book is my favorite bookmark because it does its job. And Helia asks, what book do you love but other booktubers hate? And this could really be any kind of book because everyone either loves or hates a book. I don't think there's like one book that everyone absolutely loves. So I would say like recently, probably like The Starless Sea. I know a lot of people didn't like that because of the poetic writing. So I guess Starless Sea. What's your comfort read when you're feeling down? Now this one is a little bit more complicated because it depends on why I'm feeling down and if I want to just cry or if I want to be cheered up. So I usually tend to go to like movies that make me cry, because books I react to differently every time I read. So really I go to a movie that makes me want to cry. If I want to be happy, I'll pick up books like Jane Austen's books. I'll pick up the Harry Potter books, the Outlander books, different books like that that I know will make me smile. And which books makes you happy? So I think I just answered that question, but also like We Lived in the Castle, I think is the name of the book, by Dottie Smith. That book is so special because it makes me smile and it makes me cry, and it's a book that is just so dear to me. Angela at AG Novels asks, how did your dream of owning a bookstore come up? And this is a great question. So when I was little, we didn't have a lot of money, so the library was a wondrous place to me. But with the library, you always had to bring back your books. You couldn't keep them. And so for a lot of holidays, especially as I started getting older, my grandma would take me shopping, like for our birthdays, for Christmas, that kind of thing. And I'd always choose the bookstore because these were books that I got to keep. And that was just the most special thing to me, is going book shopping with people, because I got to keep these books and I didn't have to give them back. And I could get whatever book I wanted to. So that was special to me as a kid, and I wanted to bring forth that joy to other people. Favorite thing in the world is to give people books, so it just makes sense owning a bookstore and being able to give that love to other people. Angela also asked, what's a comfort read for you? For me, a comfort read is something that I can always go back to. Harry Potter, Outlander, Jane Austen, those kinds of books I've read over and over and over again, and I still get new things from them every time. And so a comfort read is really just something that I can go back to and know that it'll always be there. I like my comfort reads to be a little bit more complex books that I think I'll get something different from out of each read, but just books that I go back to over and over and over again that are always there for me. Yuri Gutman asks, what's the first fantasy book you've ever read? The first fantasy book I remember reading was, I think it was The Secret Garden, and I just loved that book so much. I pretended like, when I was put on punishment, I was forced to go outside instead of going sent to my room, because my mom always knew that I would just read if I was sent to my room. So I was forced outside, and after I read The Secret Garden, I would pretend that I had this secret garden where I could escape to a different world, and I had this, secret uncle that would come and claim me as my long-lost father. So I think that's considered a fantasy. I would say that's the first fantasy book I remember reading. And he also asked, did it age well? I think it still ages well. I don't pay attention to a lot of that, and I haven't read it in forever, so I need to go back and reread that. But I guess I'd say yes, it ages well, because it's still a favorite for a lot of people, and I just love it. So Katrina at the Diary of a Book Nerd asks, name a book or literary character that you wish you had written. This is a hard one. I love all of these questions, and I love all of these books that I've read. And literary characters, I would say maybe like Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, just because it's so brilliant and so witty and so well done and so complex that I wish that I had the skills of Jane Austen to write that kind of world and characters that are just timeless over and over and over again. Joanna asks, what's your favorite hobby outside of BookTube or reading? And gosh, most of my free time is spent either creating booktube stuff or reading. So I don't have a lot of hobbies outside of that. I listen to a lot of 80s music. I love the 80s. I was born and raised in the 80s, and the 80s are forever in my heart. I watch a lot of rerun TV shows, like my favorite TV shows, just over and over again. I don't watch a lot of new stuff. So I guess, like I watch TV shows and movies with my boyfriend Howard. So I guess that would be my favorite hobby, because that's something that we do together. Also spending time with my nieces, because I love them to pieces. Nice Man asks, what is your favorite book to movie adaptation? And this, I would say, is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. That adaptation with Keira Knightley, I believe it was so well done. I loved it so much. Also, let's see, We Always Lived in the Castle was a great adaptation. And then I would say The Umbrella Academy, which is actually a TV show and not a movie, they're totally different from each other. So the Umbrella Academy comics or graphic novels are totally different than the TV show. It's got like the same characters, but totally different. Like, if you've read them, you would know. It just has a total different feel and total different storytelling ways, but I love both of them equally. So that would be another one. He also asks, who has the best hair on BookTube, Joanna, Andy, or Greg? I would say Joanna and Andy. For male and females, their hair is just always spot on. My hair just does whatever the heck it wants to, and I can't control it most days, so this is what you get from me, but their hair is just always perfect in every video. And then he also asks, who's your favorite Avenger or Marvel superhero in general? And for me, this is Loki. I love Loki so much, and I love Tom Hiddleston. He's a fantastic actor, and Loki is just a great character. I love him, and I can't wait for his show that comes out in June, I think it is. I'm so excited for the Loki show. I can't wait. Abby Salter asked, favorite books growing up. So my favorite books growing up, I already talked about The Secret Garden and the Nancy Drew books. I loved, obviously, the Curious George books, because those are how I taught myself how to read and write. I loved books that I could learn through. So in 5th grade, we had this Civil War unit where we learned about the Civil War and slavery and the Civil Rights Act in the 60s. And I became obsessed with slave narratives then. We read Uncle Tom's Cabin, and I was just obsessed with this whole unit. And I read so many different slave narratives then, and I just became obsessed with it. Like the Boxcar Children, I loved those. The Magic Tree House. All of those kinds of books I just ate up. I loved them. And how many books are on your TBR? My TBR is endless. There's always books being added to it, and I would say hundreds of books are on my TBR. I can't even count how many are in there, because I just keep adding books. Every time I watch a new BookTube video, more books are added. Especially to you, Abby. You asked this question, and you added so many books to my TBR. And I'm thankful for it. I love adding books to my TBR because it gives me hope for more reading. So endless. I can't even tell you how many. Christina, who is Alan at the Library of Alexandria's lovely, amazing wife. She's like a Disney princess in real life. I love Christina so much. She asked, what's the first book you remember reading as a child? So the first book I remember being read to me had this like kids picture version of the Bible. And I remember like after church every Sunday, my grandma and my mom, depending on, switched it off, would read, part of that little kid's Bible to me. The first book I remember reading myself was the Curious George books, like I said in the last question. This is how I taught myself how to read and write, and at first, I would sit down with tracing paper and I would just trace over the pages over and over and over again. And then I began learning the letters, and then I learned that the letters made up words and words made up sentences. And I used this over and over and over again to teach myself how to read and write before I even went to kindergarten. And then I got into kindergarten, and the teachers didn't know what to do with me because I already knew how to read and write. So the Curious George books were the first books I remember reading myself. Stacy from My Literary Life in Finland asks, what book or series sparked your love for reading? And I would say, just like I've said before, the Boxcar Children were my first series that I became obsessed with. I loved the Boxcar Children so much. I wanted to be part of the Boxcar Children. So that is kind of the spark into my serious reading and just my voracious reading life. She also asked, do you have a favorite author? One favorite author, no, but several favorite authors, I guess, yes. Jennifer L. Armentrout has become a new favorite for me. I love Joan Didion and her nonfiction writing. I love Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison. I just love so many different writers. I can't pick just one. What is your most beloved possession from childhood? Okay, my most beloved possession from childhood would be Teddy, my no-arm teddy bear. This was my mom's before it became mine, and he had no arms from what I remember when I got him, but I used to bring him to church every week, and I would tell stories about him because all the kids would make fun of me because he had no arms. So I'd make up these crazy heroic stories about him and how he lost his arms, and so Teddy would be my most beloved possession from my childhood. Tara from Phasered84 asked, what is your takeout order? My go-to order is pizza. I love pizza all the time. What is one piece of advice you like to give? Just be yourself. Always be yourself, because there will always be people there that will love you for who you are. Don't ever try to change yourself for someone else. What superpower would you like to have and why? Like teleportation, just to be able to get to one place in just the blink of an eye would be fantastic. You would cut down on so much travel time and everything. It would be amazing. Also the power to speed read, and I could read so many books if I could just speed through them. What would be your superhero name and why? And this I have no idea for. So I'm going to leave this up to you guys. Write in the comments below what you think my superhero name would be and why. And I'll pick my favorite one, and maybe I'll make that a second giveaway for. And what actor do you think is good looking that others may not think so? This to me is like what is a book that you like that others don't, because everyone has different tastes. So my top actors that I love are Tom Hiddleston, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, Jason Momoa, Gerard Butler. So those are just a few. What is one book you wish BookTube would hype up more? I would say A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. I love that book so much, and it's a different type of escape book. And it's just so fantastic, and I wish that more people read it and talked about it. And it's becoming a limited TV series with Kenneth Branagh, so maybe it'll be talked about more once that comes out. Out of our friends, who would be your sidekick and why, and what adventure would you go on? I'd have to say my triplets, Katrina and Charmaine, and because they're my triplets, I can't have any more. I mean, I'd love to have you all as my sidekicks, but they're my triplets, so that's why. And we would go on bookish adventures, probably bookstore adventures, finding the right books, and that's it. And Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads asked, favorite drink? I love coffee, I love hot cider, cold cider, and like my alcoholic beverage of choice that I go to usually is a rum and coke. She asked, place on your travel bucket list other than Scotland. This would be basically everywhere. I've traveled very little, so I've gone to Canada and I've gone to Puerto Rico, and that's the extent of my international travel. So the world: London, Ireland, Scotland, the Netherlands, Japan, China. I just want to, France, Italy. I just want to go everywhere. She also says, please take us with you. If I could, I totally would. If you could hang out with any fictional character, who would it be and why? This is so hard. So I'm just going to go with the one that just comes to my mind first, and that would be Monsieur Perdue. I would say from the Little Paris Bookshop, which is one of my favorite books, and he is like, Monsieur Perdue is me. His life goal is to find the perfect book for everyone. And he has like this little bookshop on the river in Paris, and he's just like, someone will bring a book to him to buy, and he's like, nope, that's not the right book. We need to find the right book. And so I would love to hang out with him and just learn his ways. And I just love him so much. He's so great. And last but not least, we have Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative. Leslie asks, how many books are on your physical TBR? And like this behind me is part of my physical TBR, and then I also have a whole other shelf. I would say at least like 200 books there. So many. Yeah. So those are my question and answers. I put all of your names into our wheel of prizes, and I'm going to spin to see the winner. Whoever comes the winner will then, I will purchase one book off of their Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever wish list you wish to send to me. And I ask that you put that, either send it to me in a message or in the comments below, and we'll see out who is the winner. We're going to spin to see who is our winner. Drum roll, please. Joanna! Congratulations, Joanna. That was our question and answer video. Thank you all for sending in some amazing questions. Congratulations to our winner for the giveaway. I love you all to the moon and back. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your answers to the questions below in the comments, and keep reading. And like I said, I love you all to the moon and back.